Episode 19.
All right.
Kurt Potter.
Yes, sir.
Potter, right?
Yep.
Okay. Damn, I was like...
Like Harry Potter.
Yeah. Captain Kurt Potter. Legit.
Right?
We'll get into that in a minute.
No worries.
So you're just saying you've been doing a podcast?
Yes.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of partners of mine. Actually, they're both Navy SEAL wives.
Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, we've been doing a podcast we're calling the Civic Bitch Slap. The idea is to kind of use the issues of the day to kind of teach people how to politically engage.
Well, it crossed my mind. I was wondering what the hell we was going to talk about, and I really don't know. I had a couple of things I wanted to go into a little bit, just based on our conversations that we always have. Mm-hmm. But I do know how heavily involved you are, not into politics, but it's civics. It's how our government works, how, you know what I mean. And to be honest with you, it always goes above my head. I think most people would just sit there and stare at you with a little drool, like, what the fuck's he talking about? Because you really go in deep.
Yeah, well, I think, for me, the way I actually ended up getting into this was there was an issue that was important to me at the Tennessee State Legislature. Mm-hmm. I'd never gotten into politics before in my life. I mean, I've always been civically aware, but I wasn't like knee deep in it. So I got involved in this issue at the legislature, and then what ends up happening is I start getting my butt kicked at every turn. And I had 3 other people that I was working with on this issue, and finally it was like, all right, I am done getting my butt kicked. I'm going to change my perspective in the way I deal with this. And so I started getting into strategy, and we ended up starting moving things and making things happen. And so it culminated at the Tennessee State Legislature. She was the Republican caucus chair is what she was. And anyway.
And everyone listening has no clue what you're talking about. But go ahead. I'm going to keep going.
Oh, okay. Yeah, gotcha.
No, you're fine. I literally have no idea about these levels of government.
And I didn't
about
either.
Presidents and senators and congressmen, and we don't even really understand that because government's a very complex thing. Mm-hmm. But go ahead. So that's how you got into it.
Yeah, and so anyway, we ended up defeating her in her election and gotten that knee deep into it. But for me, what happened was we went back to the legislature, and I couldn't believe how much influence we had then. Yeah. And I was thinking to myself, I'm nobody special. I'm just an average person who just got involved in an issue. Yeah. But I learned something.
Was YouTube around when you started learning this?
Yeah, I think it was.
How did you go about gathering this information, this knowledge? People around, surrounding yourself with people?
Yeah, surrounding myself with people and failing.
Oh, yeah. Well,
yep.
I agree. Failing's good.
Yeah, I mean, you never learn through success.
Yeah, you're right.
And so, anyway, when we got to that level, I was just looking at my partners then, and I was like, why aren't we teaching this to people? Mm-hmm. People don't know how this works, and they've never been taught this stuff in school. And I mean, we've even been taught fallacies in school about this whole process. The whole idea that we have 3 co-equal branches. Yeah, they're not co-equal. They've never been co-equal, and they're never intended to be.
And the 3 branches, because Brennan actually enjoys this because he actually picks up and learns something on every one.
Yeah. The
3 branches that we're talking about, let's see if I can even remember, which is judicial, legislative, and what's the last one? Executive, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so how that works is, I guess, Congress is legislative.
Yep.
What was it? Oh,
executive.
Executive would be
the president,
and then the Senate would be what's judicial?
No,
DOD. What's judicial?
No, that's okay. The Senate and the House together, that's Congress.
Okay.
And they are the superior head of government. Yeah. Then you've got the executive branch, and then below that you've got the judiciary, which is the Supreme Court.
These create checks and balances.
Well, yeah, to a degree, but here's the thing is that, and I don't mean to shoot this, like professorial or whatever, but in all reality, when you read the Constitution, Article 1 is the authority of the legislature. You're talking about Congress, and so the House and the Senate. And so when you look at Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, they've got between 18 and 21 different authorities that are depending on how you break out the clauses. Then Article 2 of the Constitution is the executive branch.
And it's too complex. You're taking it to a level that the average public may not need to know, unless I think they want to be involved in politics. But I'm gonna tell you, man, that could fry an average person's brain. Like life is hard enough. You know what I mean?
It
like
is
just,
hard.
Just trying to function and make $1 and keep your kids, halfway sane and have a reasonable relationship in life. Just being able to communicate with another human being is difficult enough. And then you get into politics, and I don't know if I don't think what you're describing. Excuse me, maybe this fucking beer. I gotta find another beer that don't make me burp. I don't think of it as politics. What you're talking about is government, civics.
Yes.
Right. Okay. I was thinking about it recently. Politics to me, I compare it to wrestling. I think of all these politicians as a wrestler. I think back in the day, it really had value, and people were doing it because it was honorable, and they had integrity, and they were trying to preserve or progress. Because both are important. Conservative and progressive ideas are important because you can't stay stagnant.
Right.
But then you can't go too far too fast. So I think that politics really, I don't know, back in the day was a lot more important. But these days it literally feels like these two wrestlers that are backstage talking shit with each other. And then they go out to the public and it's all a facade. It's all fake. It's all for the wrong reasons. And
I don't think it's any different than it ever has been.
Maybe.
Yeah, because it's interesting because like when you go back to George Washington's day,
okay,
he didn't want to serve a second term as president, and the reason he didn't want to is because he just come through the war. He took on the first term as president, and all he saw was people bickering over the scraps off the public table, and he had it up to here.
Well, yeah, but that's why I say politics are different. People don't care anymore. They eat that up because they want to divide us. I look at wrestling, and they divide a stadium, right? And the more divisive it is, the more controversial, the more attention it'll get. Like the more exciting it is, right? And that's why it feels so fake, and that's why I compare it to wrestling. I don't think it's people with the government's. I'm sorry, I don't think it's individuals with. I don't think they have the people's best interest in mind. They have their own. And that's what scares me. Anybody that wants to be into politics scares me right out of the gate because it's a leadership role. It's a huge responsibility to serve other people. And I would never want that responsibility because I would take it seriously. It's not something I think individuals want. They're called to do it. They're chosen to do it. And it's any form of leadership. Let me turn this fan on. Turn that fan on. It's any form of leadership, whether it's your job, you're a supervisor, you're a captain in the military. I mean, these are hard things if they're done properly, and it's not something people should seek out.
I think we have to have those people.
I agree, but the ones that are the ones that end up in it a lot of times are actually the worst.
Well, there's an old saying: "Beware of the man who wants to." I'm trying to remember exactly how it goes. Beware the man who wants to rule. What was the word? Who wants to rule benevolently because he still means to rule.
Yeah, I mean that's ultimately what I'm saying. Like, I don't want to make this whole thing about politics because our conversations are really about life. We're both dads and husbands and all that other stuff, and somehow because I'm curious.
We weave that in.
Yeah, but I'm really into the psychology of the political machine, and I try to understand why people would want to do it. And I just can't for the life of me understand it. I mean, I think good leaders don't want those responsibilities, but they'll do it because it's the right thing. I think, so I try to avoid leadership. But then I say, well, you have a responsibility. Like you have something to offer. And I feel like I'm shortchanging society in a way because I kind of like to blend in the shadows, even when I was in the military.
I totally get it. I guess from my perspective, the reason people need to learn civics is because everybody's got to look out for their own best interest. And if you're not involved in that process, then you're not looking out for your own best interest. You're just kind of coasting by. And these people, I mean, yeah, you're right. They're sharks. Yeah. And if you're not out there catching the sharks, then it's tough to get control of them. Well,
I mean, the machines now, it's almost too far gone. It's so far gone that even people with great intentions get swallowed up by it.
Maybe I didn't. I'll tell you, this is the thing. when I started getting into party politics, I totally left the Republican Party because I started realizing that I was just there to serve the party, and they weren't going to give me any form of authority in this process at all. When I started actively engaging in the civics process, I started gaining a lot of authority, and so did the people that I was working with. And it was amazing how much influence we could have just by engaging the process. Mm-hmm. And I thought, individuals need to be able to do that. And I'm certain that not all individuals want to.
Well, there was something that sparked your interest. There was a reason why. There was either some need or want for you to be even get involved. What was the reason?
So, all right. So when Obamacare came about, I was against the whole idea of centralizing that authority over the healthcare industry. Mm-hmm. And so, long story short, I used to own an ambulance company. My MBA specialized in healthcare administration. Haven't worked in healthcare since, but it's always been an important thing to me. So when Obamacare came along, I was like, wow, this is the move towards complete control over the healthcare system by the government. And I just don't believe that that's the right thing. So I got involved in an issue called the Healthcare Compact at the Tennessee State Legislature, and the idea was to get the state of Tennessee to stand up to the federal government on this healthcare issue.
Okay, so that's what got you fired up. That's what got you to researching how our government works, how the world spins.
Absolutely. And what I figured out...
You're pretty excited about it. Like you get fired up. I mean, hell, you've been writing... every time I've seen you is putting pages down in a book. How far along are you in that?
Oh, we're about...
Did you shelf it?
No, I haven't shelved it. I've actually got somebody I'm working with on it, but I've got about 30,000 words down. I've probably got about another 20,000 to go.
Wow. Just thoughts, ideas.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just trying to lay it all out in a way that's cogent and that people can read it and understand it, where I'm not shooting over people's heads.
Podcast. I didn't even know you were doing a podcast, but I think that's one cool thing about podcasts is that all this can be transcribed.
Oh, absolutely.
Like your voice could be separated from my voice, and you could just transcribe this over years and put it to Word and search all that stuff. And if you ever had an idea, you can see if you had ever said anything, because usually, just speaking off the tip of your tongue, some cool things might get said. And, anyways, I'm kind of rambling now, but
it's okay.
I'm glad you're doing it. How often are you doing it?
It just depends. I kind of do it as the moment takes me. It's like...
I feel you. Sometimes it's hard to be consistent. Yeah. I've been taking advantage of, what was it? I had COVID. I didn't do it. It snowed. I didn't do it. Like, I'm looking for any reason not to do the podcast sometimes, because it's kind of challenging, believe it or not, just kind of getting this stuff scheduled. And I'm lazy. I say it all the time. I'm super, super lazy, and I'm in this weird place, and I've just been enjoying not doing much. But I can't let this go because I have a responsibility. I made a commitment. I'm going to keep doing it.
Sure.
And then once I start doing it, I get excited. Once I sit down for a conversation, I love it, and I end up leaving on a high and just like, wow, I'm glad I did that. So I don't know. I don't know what this is or what it's going to be. And honestly, I didn't even know what we was going to talk about. I knew we was going to get into civics and all that other stuff. And I want to go more into it. And if you got something about it you want to share, that'd be great. But I had some questions whenever you get going. Go ahead with what you was wanting to say.
No. Let's go with the questions, because I'll tell you, you and I get into these conversations that are awesome.
Well, we don't mean to. We don't plan them.
No, but we just get into them, and all of a sudden ideas start flowing, and I mean, it's almost like we're foils off of each other on this.
Yeah. I wonder if we would record every conversation we have. Some of them would probably not make the cut.
Right.
But you never know what you're going to end up with. So one thing that's funny is I said Captain Kurt. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about that earlier. I thought it was funny. You are, in fact, a captain in the U.S. Army National Guard. And it's funny. I'd known you for a year or two and never knew.
In the Tennessee State Guard.
Tennessee State Guard. Okay, right. I didn't know it. Okay.
Yep.
So, but isn't that still the Army National Guard? Tennessee
breaks its guard up into two.
Okay, well, that was what I was in.
Yeah, and so like, for example, I was on active duty in the U.S. Army.
Yeah,
and then the military department of Tennessee breaks their guard up into two sections. They've got the National Guard, which takes national missions, and then they've got the State Guard, which takes state missions.
Well, I guess I was national. I was Army National Guard.
Yeah,
I didn't know there was a difference.
Yeah, and here's the thing: is that
I thought National Guard was intended to stay locally.
No, they can be federalized.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought that was the point of the reserves.
Oh, yeah, it's sort of, but it's the reserves do that. The National Guard does it. The National Guard serves the state. The governor is commander in chief and all that other sort of stuff. Tennessee breaks their guard up into the National Guard, which can be federalized. Like the president can call them up and send them to Afghanistan, right?
Yeah.
What we do,
the governor calls you up.
yeah, the governor calls us up, and we work with TEMA and all of that sort of stuff. National disaster kind of things.
What was your MOS originally?
Originally
MOS
on
now?
active. What's that?
What's your MOS now?
I don't have an MOS
Okay.
now. When you're an officer, they go by.
See how much of a fucking idiot I am?
No, it's okay.
Like, it's so funny because I didn't know you were in the military. And then to find out you was a captain was a little bit of a shock to me. I thought, I never talk about being in the military. You know what I mean? And anyways, to find out you was in, and then in a captain on top, because it takes effort to do things like that. You know what I mean? You got to put
Sure.
a lot of time in for the education, because you went in as an
Almost,
enlisted, right?
Yeah, as an nothing, and
Yeah.
and so the so I was a combat heavy engineer on active duty, stationed over in Germany, and then did my last year at Fort Rucker, Alabama.
Okay. Came back, joined the state
Yep.
guard, and went to would you go to the college?
Yeah,
degree?
So I finished college on active duty.
Yeah.
And then when I came off, I used the GI Bill and Army College Fund to go get my MBA.
Yeah.
So when I came back to the Guard, they were like, "Hey, you want to go to OCS?" I was like, "Hell yeah, let's do it."
Well, that's awesome, man. Well, yeah, I never got over you being a captain in the military. Because, anyways, I don't know why that's weird to me. It's just, I guess, because we had so many conversation, and then out of the blue, oh yeah, somebody's like, oh yeah, he's a captain. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. He's a captain. Good friend of mine was a major. My neighbor was a colonel. The guy that lives next to where he moved a couple years ago. He's a colonel. So I don't know. I have a lot of respect for the military, even though I was a terrible soldier. I mean, I was okay. I just didn't take it too seriously. I didn't take the rank and stuff too seriously, and ended up having a good career. And I'm not going to get into my military career. I've talked about it a couple times here, but a lot of people are shocked when they find out I was in the military because I'd never told anybody.
Right.
Because I never got deployed. I never did anything cool. Nothing. So 6 years of piddling.
I guess. I mean, here's the deal. So I missed the military. When I was on active duty, I hated it. What I hated was somebody being over top of me, making sure that I was safe and okay. I always wanted that to be my responsibility, not somebody else's. And that was very difficult for me to accept. But what I didn't realize is that when I came off of active duty, I had a really difficult time transitioning back into civilian life. I was used to that regimented life. I was used to I was used to people being serious about their jobs, paying attention to detail, structure. Yeah. And then I came out and nobody was like that in the civilian side. And it just drove me insane.
Or in the Guard. Any of the guards I was in, it was very laid back.
No,
very
I got you. So, but I mean, that was something that I had a very difficult time dealing with. I opened up an ambulance company and started running an ambulance company, and I would hire people and they wouldn't pay that attention to detail. And it drove me insane. Yeah. So.
Well, how many more years you got before you get out?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know when I want to retire my commission. I enjoy what I'm doing, and I like it, and I love the culture of it. When I'm not with soldiers, I miss soldiers, and so that's, for me, it's not about the job and when can I get out anymore. It's really more about being in the culture and being with people that I know who have the same values.
Yeah. Well, one thing I was thinking about, one thing that's come up a lot with us, and I don't know if you're willing to talk about it because I didn't tell you you didn't have a clue what we was going to talk about, but family, something that comes up a lot, relationships. Sure. Yeah. I don't know how much of that you can go into or even feel comfortable, or we can avoid it entirely.
No, it's okay.
I see you're still wearing a ring.
Yeah, but I'm in the middle of a divorce and all that sort of stuff.
I know.
And we're, I've got a 21-year-old daughter and I've got a 17, almost 18-year-old son. And for me, I would do just about anything to avoid the divorce, because you don't get married to get divorced, and I don't want to hurt the kids. But I've come to a point where I'm okay with it now, in the sense that it doesn't hurt me at this point. It only hurts them, and I would do anything not to hurt them. But I mean, if she's out, she's out.
Well, I mean, I think at one time you were out too.
Yeah.
See, I've been on. I've heard. I think that's where our friendship kind of grew from. And I was driving home today. I was thinking, oh, I know what to talk about because you'd heard me talk about my experiences when I left.
Yep.
And we talked to each other a lot. Like you were hearing what I was going through, and I guess you knew that you were about to be going through, a separation. I guess that's where a lot of our conversations come from in philosophy and ideas. And
Sure. Well,
I've seen you up and I've seen you down, but you went through a pretty hard time there for a little bit. A lot of uncertainty because it was like, okay, it's official. We're actually getting a fucking divorce because it's until it's confirmed, you just
right.
whatever. You're not too worried about it, I guess. But once it was confirmed, you went through a pretty fucking uncertain patch. I remember feeling it around you. Never was you, it never was you. It was never like, what is the word I'm looking for? Whatever. You were always a pleasure to be around. It never felt bad, but it did feel hard. I felt bad for you a lot because I went through it too. I went through it too. When I was ready to come home, my wife was like, "No." I'm like, "What?" Baby, I'm healed. Anyways, it was a really hard thing, but I learned so much through all of it. Getting hurt and getting devastated. You know what I mean? So, anyways, what I was going to say is that, yours is not official, but here you are. You're back up here. You feel good, and I was like, okay, this motherfucker didn't lay down and die. Like, so your experience. If you want to talk about it a little bit.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Because I think this is the problem. So many people out there, so many men especially, and I can't speak for women. I mean, women go through their own struggles, and this ain't about them. If they want to come on and talk about it, I'm all happy. They can come on. But for men, too many men are killing themselves, losing everything, destroying everything. And it's like, man, you can come out of this. It's not the end of the world.
Well, and for me, I think you're right. Resilience is an important thing, and I think that's one of the things that the Army taught me more than anything. I always say that the Army taught me more than anything is how to suffer. And what they did was they pushed my bounds of suffering so far out that I have a very difficult time suffering in a lot of ways anymore. And I think that was part of the downfall of my marriage in some ways, just because I think that I'll take responsibility for it. I did a lot of things in my marriage that destroyed it. And I'll take absolute responsibility for that. But at the same time, you're right. It's a learning experience. And when I was going through really the meat of it, it was very difficult. It was hard mentally and emotionally.
And you're still going through it, but
but I'm much better
stable.
Now. Yes, much better now.
Have you got to a point of acceptance?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's really the key. If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that was key for me. Was okay. It just is what it is. That's all. That's a hard thing to get to. It just once it happens, it just happens.
Yes, and here's the thing: is I'm looking forward to the independence.
Well, this is why I want to talk about it a lot because I think about one thing I don't talk about. I mean, I guess I do talk about it here a lot, but I don't really ever go into detail about my thoughts on relationships and love and all these things. Although I have plenty of philosophies and I can sit down and have a conversation with anybody about these ideas, but it's really hard to go into without somebody asking me questions. So, But one thing I think about a lot is why we get married, when we get married, how we get honestly trapped, and how I think a lot of times divorce is, I know they say, oh, it's just the beginning, but I truly believe that because we're fucking idiots when we fall in love for the first time. We're young, we're desperate, there's all these hormones are going
the loneliness.
Through society. The societal norm is suggesting, get married, have kids, because it's just the way it is. And I do think it's critically important. But, when we do get married, man, do I even want to go into all those things? I talk about spinning plates a lot and stuff, and the importance of that, and for men and women. A lot of people think, oh, this is men should do that. No, women should do it. Men should do it. You should have options. It's called dating back in the day.
Right.
And for whatever reason, you can't. It's so weird to me that people are so threatened if you're dating
Yeah, well-
other people.
Well, one of the things that you turned me on to was Rollo Tomasi's book.
Yeah.
And
The Rational Male.
yeah, The Rational Male.
Wonderful book.
And when I read it, it made a lot of sense to me. One of the problems we have, I think, in a lot of ways, is our own insecurities.
That's at the top of the list.
Yes, and so what ends up happening is we meet one person, and we start dating them or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like exclusive, out of nowhere.
Yes.
And so
is-
why does it have to be exclusive? Why can't
That's a very
we?
beta mindset. Well, because because out of fear of losing her to someone else, you'll hold on to her, and she'll hold on to you. Because what if sometime, oh God, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Out of fear of being alone.
Yeah, no, I totally
Period.
get it. And here's the thing: is that once you get good with yourself and being alone,
Yeah.
you don't have to be subject to that anymore.
And I've seen a flip side of that too. Like I know people that are okay being alone and have no desire to date, which is not healthy. They've been burned, right? And they're doing it out to protect their ego, and their own mental stability. That's not healthy either. It's putting yourself out there to be rejected, dating multiple people, and they call it spinning plates these days. Used to it's called dating.
Yeah.
And spinning plates, for anybody that doesn't know, is literally just the thought of holding a stick up. How many plates can you spin on the stick until they start to fall and break? And if your number's 3, 4, 5, good for you. You know, date as many people as possible, and that's it. That's the key. And that puts you in a position that you're not desperate. You're not calling. I look at it like this. If you were my best friend, my only friend, I'm going to be a desperate motherfucker and find out what you're doing on Friday, Saturday, how you want to hang out on Sunday, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, that is desperate. That is very unattractive, right? So
Agreed.
dating should be exactly the same thing. But until you figure out who are you compatible with. And it gives you an option to find out. It gives you the time to figure out how to find someone that has a high value. We call it the SMV, sexual market value.
Right.
Because we live in the sexual marketplace. And that's what it is. If it's offensive, it's offensive. But it's an idea. It's a philosophy. And how do you increase your sexual market value? You feel good about who you are.
Yeah.
You understand, hey, I'm not desperate. I don't have to always be available. I can spend time with my family, my friends, you know, and I can get to know people. I get to know me. And so what happens is, I just heard something mess up. Anyways, what happens is we date one. We're 20 years old. We don't want to settle down. We like being single. We like to hunt. We like our freedom. Well, the girl's ready to get married, you know, and you can't blame them, you know.
Yeah, and I imagine especially at my age. I mean, I'm 51. And so you got a lot of women out there who are this age, and you're right, they feel desperate to.
Well, I don't want to speak for all women, but
Right.
there's this instinct, this biological instinct that the body has in females. It's just the way we're wired, females at least, to procreate, to have a child, you know. And so that's why there's so much pressure to find their man, get married, reproduce, right? And we did our part, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm trying to say is, look, I think what happens is that guy, for instance, let's say this one individual that's not ready to get married, she says, well, fine, bye. He gets desperate and says, wait. It's in every movie, right?
Yeah,
every
no, I
movie's
totally
like,
get
wait. And he, out of desperation, instead of saying, okay, well, good luck, I hope we meet again, respectfully to yourself and respectfully to her, you know, go out and see, you know?
Right. And that's the thing is, how do you know who you're going to be compatible with unless you are spinning plates?
Yeah.
You've got to meet a number of people before you find that one that you just click with.
Yes, and even then, don't be desperate. Keep a few plates available. Keep a few people in your circle that you're not, because if you become overwhelming and you smother that individual,
Now you lose your value.
yeah, your value dies. And if she does the same thing, if she doesn't maintain her value and now she becomes desperate, you know what I mean? It's like you lose your self-respect as an individual. This is all about self-respect, not respecting others. This is self-respect on a female and a male. Like, how much do I respect myself? What is my value? How do I feel about me? Am I so desperate that I have to marry this person? Right?
Well, to a degree, I think there's a place in time when you meet somebody and you just click.
I agree.
And it's sort of like you're the yin and yang of each other. And at that moment in time, then you still are maintaining your value as a human being, but you're doing it by now being together with another human being. And we were talking about leadership earlier. In my mind, leadership is about taking care of people. And so now all of a sudden you've got somebody that you want to take care of, that you want what's best for them and all of that sort of stuff. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to be right there all the time on their heels. Mm-hmm. You can still maintain your life and your dignity and all of that sort of stuff. You can have friends and go do things.
Yeah. And matter of fact, go ahead, keep going.
That's good. Yeah, I'm just saying. But now you've got somebody else in your life that you want to be.
You want to share it.
Yes,
that's the beauty of life. It's not accomplishing things. It's not purchasing and owning and conquering. It's sharing. That's the beauty of a life. And you were talking about leadership. The most important, the thought. These are very complicated things that we're discussing. None of these are facts. These are all ideas and thoughts, and it's very gray. It's very complicated. This is not black and white, and I don't want to make it sound simple. But you were saying something about leadership is, taking care of others. But I think without a doubt, when I talk about self-respect, what I'm talking about is taking care of myself first, my own mental health, my own happiness, my own. I have to be a good version of me before I can ever be a good version for someone else. Like, I cannot provide value in other people's lives if I'm not emotionally stable.
Right. Well, in working in EMS, one of the things that is that your safety is primary, because you can't help somebody if you become a victim.
Yeah. And
so I think what we're talking about really is kind of that mindset.
Yeah.
I can't lead somebody. I can't take care of them if I can't take care of myself.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And so what we're talking about is, and what I think it's just not being so eager to jump in, right? There's nothing wrong with marriage. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But if you were pressured into it, if you felt pressured, that's not good, man. It should be a very mutual, okay, listen, I've tried to spend time without this person and I can't. I try to spend time with another person, but it's just not the same. It's okay. I've narrowed it down to this one right here. He, she, whatever. This is it. I want to invest here, and I'll stop investing everywhere else. It's called a consummate.
Right.
That's what it is. It's called a consummate, and it's a beautiful thing. But here's the deal. 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road. No, I actually think this. I actually believe that if that thing ever happened, that true love, that consummate, and we can talk about that someday if we want to. It's the why. It's the why of my Steinberg triangle, I think is what it is. The Steinberg theory. I call it the why of life. I think if you ever had that, really, that true love. And when I say true love, I ain't talking about Hollywood's version of true love.
No,
I'm talking about passion, intimacy, and dedication. If you ever possess those three things at any point, that's and a lot of people do. But I think if you ever did, I think you can maintain it. I think we lose that because we lose our self-respect and we become dependent on the other person. We become needy, clingy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not really living our best life. We fall into a rut. We do a job. We lose our passion for life, our curiosity. We give up on the things that made us feel good, the adventure. Like, men are conquerors. We want to go climb mountains, and it's very healthy. And then women, whatever makes women tick, they give up on that too. Once they have their kids, they're like, well, what now? Because their only drive, a lot of times for a lot of women, was to get married and have kids. And security. I think it's very important. And it's part of our evolution. But that's not the end. Pick up art. Try new things, and if you can keep growing as an individual, I truly believe that special thing that that caused that consummate in the beginning, because they were both doing what was best for them in life when they met. A lot of times,
yeah,
that's a good relationship.
Oh no, I agree, but I think there's also an element of having trust in somebody and being so trusting that they can know you at your deepest and darkest 100%. Moments. And here's the thing: is that we're all human beings, and so we have times when we stand and we're, people look up to us. We have times when we are at our worst, and when you can find those people, or that person who, when you are at your worst, instead of abandoning you, says, "Here, take my hand."
I know what you're saying. That's a good point. Let's say that if I think life's an investment. Everything's an investment. this conversation is an investment. The relationship I have with my wife, my children, they're all investments. And once I realized this is a bad investment, that's what I did. I realized me and my wife have been together for 18 years, and I thought it's a bad investment. We just weren't going the same place. You know what I mean? Where our paths had split, and we had just lost touch. And when you're together in it, it's very, very difficult to self-reflect. Well, like living in the same house, and me and my wife have always had a beautiful relationship. We never argue, fight. I mean, yeah, we argue about the dumbest shit, but not anything important in life. But separating was the best thing that ever happened to us, because it only took and this is why. So negative and positive emotions. Positive emotions last a lifetime. Any good thing, a memory, it lasts forever. But a negative emotion, it doesn't last long as you're not in a situation that you keep stacking more negative emotions on top.
That's exactly. And that was what I was going to say. After years and years and years of that, now all of a sudden you got a lot of water under the bridge.
And it feels hopeless because you lose trust.
Yeah.
Like you can't help. You despise one another. That's what happens. You resent. Once you resent someone, you know what I mean? And you resent each other. It's not just one person. You know, you ultimately resent each other. But it's amazing. Just a little 30 days. Just say, I'm committing to 30 days. I'm going over here. You go over there. And I don't want to see you, right? And as long as you're not around each other for just long enough that the negative emotions start to go away and awesome memories start to reinforce, nostalgia kicks in. Sure. And it's this beautiful swap. It happened to me. I went through that process, and I never thought it was possible. I thought, nope, it's over. It came to an end. We weren't mad at each other. It was like, I just want to wish you luck, man. It was very pleasant, and it was a wonderful experience. It was very healthy. But I understood the importance of not investing more. I'm very big on this investment idea, and I was just done investing. I was going to invest in something else, someone else, me. It didn't matter. I was ready to move on to the next chapter of my life because I thought it was important for me to be happy. I thought it was important for her to be happy, because how are we going to be good parents? You know, you know what I mean? How are we going to function in society if we ain't even happy?
Take care of the kids and all that stuff. Yeah, I agreed.
Yeah, and it was tough, man. But after a little bit of time, I started noticing little things. Little memories started popping back up. Things I'd long forgot about. And then after one day, I'm like, why did I leave? Like, I cannot remember what it is about her that pissed me off. Like, why did I ever resent her? I literally, for the life of me, could not remember any negative thoughts. And we both kind of went through that. And it was a really wonderful experience. And it took moving out. It was that important. Like, I had to go and get my own place. And it only took a month or two. And bam, I was like, oh my God, she's the most incredible thing ever. But I burned her, you know, and she's like, oh, hell no. She respected herself at that point, that she was not going to give me another chance. Like, I really had to prove myself in a way. And man, it was the greatest life lesson ever. Like, she was not giving it. I literally lost my fucking mind. It was the closest I ever come to checking myself into a hospital. Wow. Because I was having like panic attacks and anxiety, and my poor kids, they were trying to keep me sane. One minute I was okay, the next minute I'd lost my shit. And it was awful. It was the worst experience of my life. I was trying to get to a point of acceptance because I understood all the psychology. I knew everything that was happening to me. I'd read about these things. I knew all these things were going to happen. It didn't matter. You are not in control of your emotions. You're just you're along for the ride, and you got to give those fuckers time to pass.
Yes, and they have to percolate.
Yeah, and that's why I say I encourage a lot of people, move out. Give them space, and, because that thing that you had, you can have again. But as long as you're stacking a negative emotion on top of each other every single day, in the way that they don't look at you the same way, you take it personally, right? They say something that nobody fucking means these things. These are not, you guys ain't bad people. You're just unhappy. You know what I mean? And I went through it too. Well, anyways, a lot of people are going through it. And so what I'm trying to say is that, look, if it doesn't work out, fine. Fucking nothing wrong with it. I have no problem. Even if my wife and I was completely okay with us not working out. I thought, fuck, man, she's a beautiful woman. She gets another chance at life. I'm young. I feel good. I get another chance. It's a whole nother life. And I was excited about it. And so I just happened to get lucky. I happened to get lucky, and I realized, there was really not a legitimate reason for me to leave. I was just resentful.
Yeah,
Ultimately.
no, I agree, and I think that's what happens.
Yeah.
And I
We
think,
stay too long. We keep
right.
investing.
But the opposite of love is not hate. You gotta be interested in somebody enough to hate them, and it's the opposite of love is apathy, and you just get to a point where you don't care anymore. And I think that, like we said, that layering of all those things that just they suck you in, they make you resentful, and now all of a sudden you start focusing on them and what it is that they're not doing to make you happy.
Yeah.
And what you have to come to is the realization that they're not going to make you happy. They can't make.
They shouldn't.
You have to make yourself happy.
You nailed it. Thank you so much. That was very, very important. Thanks. It was critical. That book helped with me a lot.
Absolutely.
The day I finished reading that book was the day I went and signed my lease.
Really?
I was very open with my kids about all this. Like, I mean, Brennan, we talked. I wanted them to understand what I was going through. I wasn't going crazy. There was nothing wrong with his mom. It was life.
Yeah.
And everybody goes through it. And I thought it was very responsible. No, I thought it was very important to share it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Because I didn't want to lie to my kids and be like, no, life is supposed to be perfect and you should stay with this person. No, if you're unhappy, you gotta think, is this a good investment?
Well,
Am I putting my time in the rest? And you know what I mean? Am I making a mistake?
Right. And are you? Is this going to be beneficial for everybody?
Well, look, it's not my responsibility to make someone else happy. Just like you said, they can't make you once that clicked for me. Mm-hmm. Oh, I can't make anyone happy. There's nothing I can do to provide value in another person's life, if they're not being the best version of them. Right, or yes, you can help people, but it's all for nothing in the long run, and you end up creating a lot of resentment.
Well, it all becomes short-term investments.
Yes. Okay, I'm glad you said that. So funny you said that. I do not want to forget this topic. Short-term investments is something I've been gnawing on a lot lately.
Okay.
But I don't want to forget about it. But ultimately, I realized I couldn't do anything. People have their own issues, and it's really important to take some time apart, but people don't out of fear. People stay out of fear, and that's the problem. They think, oh, well, as long as I'm here, they're here.
Well, I think culturally too. It's sort of like there's sort of like a cultural norm, I guess is a good way to say it, where if you're married to this person, this is what you need to be doing. You need to be there with them.
True. I think psychologically it's healthy to. Okay, so this is what we do. We wait too long. Mm-hmm. We wait too long. When there's the first indication that there's an imbalance, that's when we should say, whoa. What's going on here? I think I'm going to withdraw until we figure this thing out. But we just let things go over and over and over, and that's what the point of the whole painting is for. It kills a marriage. Mm-hmm. Relationships. It's the whole point of that is to remind me to never, ever let things go. Nip that shit in the bud. I'm not saying it should always be a conflict, but if there's an imbalance, you should question. Hey, there's something up. Let's figure out what this is.
Well, there's another piece to this.
Communicate more.
Right. Well, there's another piece to this, and that's I think the best way I've ever heard it put was hurt people hurt people. Yeah. And so when you're hurting, you want to lash out at other people.
It's how we satisfy. That's it. Satisfying. You're exactly right. Mm-hmm. But we wait too long, and this could be a whole podcast. This is something I do want to go further into because the death of all relationships, I truly believe, is allowing things to slip. It's not worth addressing. We say, I don't feel like fucking with that. I don't know why she's got an attitude. I don't know why he's such a dick tonight. And why is he drinking so much? Why she shops so much? Like, we don't, you know what I mean? We wonder these things and we build this resentment inside rather than saying, oh, they're unhappy. They're unhappy. And I'm unhappy. Right? It's really hard for, you can't tell me a relationship that's struggling and one person's happy.
Oh yeah, no, agreed.
No, they're both fucking miserable, and they don't know why, and it's because of unresolved issues, little bitty things, little comments, having a bad day, like my wife sent me an emoji yesterday with a face palm, and I call her, why would you send me the face palm? Like, why would you do that? You know, and I'm just getting better at addressing things, and I'm not good. I'm trying, I'm practicing. I let things go for years because I didn't want to address it, I didn't want to deal with it, and inside, resentment would build and I would just be angry, and then a week would go by or a day would go by. I let shit go pretty quickly. It would be gone. Everything's fine until one whisper. and I'm right there again. I'm on fucking guard instantly. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
and
I know exactly.
It's because we don't address the little things. We don't nip it in the fucking bud.
And I'll tell you, for me, I always I had a deep burning resentment for my wife that had lasted years, and yeah, you're right. I was the guy who would, like, went on offense.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize or think about a lot of the things that I said until one day, after we agreed to get divorced, and, she's going to a psychologist for a little bit. And I find these sheets of paper where she had written everything that I almost verbatim for the things that I said to her. Yeah. And as I was reading through that, I was like, holy shit, I did say these things, and I did feel them, and I did mean them in the moment. And it was like, wow, this is more me than it is her.
Yeah. No, it is. Yeah. And she has her own things, but we're not allowed to discuss that.
Yeah.
She can do that on her own. And we hope and wish the best.
And I don't want to throw her shit in the street. Yeah. It's not.
You haven't been. I mean, you went through your moment. I went through my moment. We both fucking bitch. We all do, and it's honest, and it's just part of it. But you're coming to a very good place. Self-reflection, a lot of personal responsibility, and it's something that you're already on the right track, and you are lucky enough. I think in a way it's almost luck to say, oh, maybe it's me. It's until you think that yourself.
And you can't change it in you if you don't know that.
Yeah, you're totally fucking clueless to it. Your ego will not allow you to see it. It puts you in a state of denial, and denial is the most powerful thing a human being can go through. I mean, it can consume, and it destroys lives.
And I have to say, I mean, over these last couple of years, the whole quote unquote gentleman's club that we put together, it's been super beneficial for me to be around other men who, talk about these things. And I mean, you and I have these conversations that get almost mind blowing sometimes. Yeah. But I mean, it's really kind of the thing that I needed to be able to self-reflect and to look back on myself and say, wait a minute, am I being healthy? Am I being happy? Am I doing the things that are going to put me in a position where I can now stop focusing on myself and look out towards others?
Yeah. We have, this little group has been healthy. It's different versions.
Yes.
What I love about it is I didn't know you was a captain.
Yeah.
Nobody knows, nobody gives a shit. We're just ordinary, average people. Some people, we're all different, but we all, some people seem like they got everything going. I don't know. It's just a beautiful mix. And I do like that we share our experiences, a lot of back roads. And Kenneth came on. He's going through a hard time right now. And I think it's important to share these things because, man, I'm going to tell you, there's so many fucking people out there that don't feel comfortable talking about a struggling relationship because they feel like a failure.
And it is a failure of sorts. But at the same time, like I said, you never learn through success. And I think, the reality is you take a look at you, me, Garrett, TG, Kenny Speck, all these people. We're all imperfect. But we all care enough about each other that we can open up on these subjects and talk through them. And
hard subjects.
Oh, yeah.
We talk about things that are... we have so much. I think it's built on respect, and I truly feel like, which I gauge a room, and I've learned this skill of being honest with people without being threatening.
Yeah.
Right. And it's because it's coming from my heart. It's because I believe what I'm saying, and I believe I've experienced it, and I'm also trying to learn. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to learn through what you're going through, and I'm trying to think, oh shit, I've done that. I know what he's doing, and right. It's easy to see someone else's, and then you say, well, if I'm thinking that, then they're thinking that. What I'm saying is we're all the fucking same. We're all going through the same things.
But I think the nice thing about our group is that as dudes, we all have enough respect for each other that we can open up and actually be vulnerable to each other and not have to worry about being attacked in that vulnerability.
Yeah, no one feels threatened. And honestly, I don't know. I don't know what brought it all together. We're just lucky.
We are lucky. I mean, this
a lot of people don't have this. Speaking of lucky, you brought up short-term games. I was thinking the other night. I just got back from Miami. And I was highly disappointed in. It was not what I had thought it would be. My perception was way different than the reality of Miami.
I lived there when I was in my teens, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's a very struggling area, and I mean, literally, people shit on the sidewalk.
Oh yeah.
And I was looking around, and I'm not really one to judge anymore. I've been listening to a podcast, not a podcast. It's a YouTube channel called Soft White Underbelly. So it's hard to watch. I mean, this guy's he's really done a good job at trying to, I don't know about expose or put it out there for people to see the real struggle in life. Because I can tell you too many times I've been dismissive, and I say, bitch made a bad investment. He's a bitch. That's a beta way of thinking. You know what I mean? I can easily dismiss people based on what I seen and felt in that moment. And thinking about how they got to that point is a whole nother process that I've been going through. And I think maybe a lot of it I narrowed down. I mean, it's complicated because mental abuse and the way people are raised and the unfortunate circumstances, like people that have children that should not have fucking children, all right? And these kids don't even have a chance. And that's when I start thinking about privilege. And anyways, Soft White Underbelly, you start watching that and you start realizing, oh my God, these people never had a fucking chance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what fucks them is short-term gains cause long-term misery. And I seen that everywhere I looked. It was like a quick high, a quick buck. And I've always knew that. I've instinctively knew the importance of earning. It is so powerful for what it does to the ego. It satisfies the body. The human body releases hormones that rewards it rewards things that you've earned.
Yes, no, I totally get that, and I think that there is an element to it though as well. Like when you start investing in people, and you're only investing in their short-term gains, you really don't have an investment in them. And so
I'm confused by that. You're saying as an individual investing in individuals,
in other individuals. Yeah. So like for example, let me see if I can clarify that any.
I almost felt like you were referring to a predator.
No,
like I almost felt that was a predatorial. Like, oh, sure, let me help you out. Here's a quick buck. And it's always a lose-lose.
Yeah, and that's my point. I mean, I'm trying to think of the way my dad would say this. But you can give something to somebody, and you can sustain them for a day.
Yeah. Okay. So it's from the Bible. Teach a man to fish.
There you go. Yeah,
Right.
but unless you get them up on their own feet, doing their best for themselves, you're not helping them.
So I think you could measure the hormones that are being released when something is being given to you. If I give you $100, it instantly releases this spike, this huge spike of dopamine, right? Which is the hormone for reward. You're being rewarded, but it goes away just as fast.
Sure, and you never put anybody into a better position by doing that.
And yeah, you leave them confused. Like,
$100
why was I only happy for a minute? Like, I can't be happy. Am I fucking bipolar?
But
there's the beauty of earning.
That $100 goes, and they're gone. It's done.
Well, the beauty of earning is I need to make $100. So instead of me giving you $100, I should give you an opportunity to make $100 over the process of a day or a week, right? So now here's the goal, right? And I have to achieve these steps to reach that goal. So every time I achieve a step, I'm one step closer to my goal. By the time I get it, boom, I'm rewarded. Wow, I fucking stuck with that. Like the emotional connection to that is so powerful. It becomes addictive. Just like going out and buying something is addictive because it gives you this instant high. I feel good, but it goes away. So I go buy something else. And that's the society. Like we live in a society of consumers because it satisfies that dopamine hit.
Right, the immediate.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate. You know, I love capitalism, but then I think about it. I think, oh, but it's designed to give people instant. You know what I mean? Like it's I don't want to get into capitalism, socialism, communism, all the isms, but I think about them a lot, and I think about there's two sides to every coin. every fucking coin has another side. So I don't care how good something looks, there's a flip side to it. And the better it is for society, the worse it is for society on another spectrum, because you see the top 1% have 90% of everything. And that's just the way it is. It doesn't matter if you're talking about communism, socialism, capitalism. It all ends up that way. Matter of fact, it ends up a lot worse in a lot of situations. We can get into a lot of... Well, I think that's a whole nother conversation.
There's value in human achievement. And I think the reality is that, yeah, you go out and you start something new, you suck at it, you take those lessons, you learn them, and then you start to be able to create value for other people through your building of whatever your knowledge base is and what you are capable of accomplishing.
There's a book. It's called the meaning of life, man's meaning of happiness, or whatever. It's a bit written by a psychologist that was in the and I've never read the book. I just know the premise of the book. I've listened to Jordan Peterson talk about it. A buddy of mine, Tom Jones, talked about it, and I realized, oh my God, both of them had read that book. But I want to say that this guy was in the camps, the Hitler's camps. What am I trying to say? The Holocaust.
Okay, right. I thought you're talking about the archipelago.
No, that's the Russian. Yeah. That's the Russian. I'm talking about the Holocaust, where people went to, one person would go to the gas chamber, one person would go to a factory, right? And the reason why you would go to the gas chambers is you're not worth feeding. You wouldn't produce value for the Germans. So they'd send you, if you were capable, they'd send you to a factory so you can produce whatever they need. And the way it worked is, I think at the end of the day, every day, whoever the least productive individuals were would get hung, right? And so just get rid of them. You know what I mean? Keep a fresh supply of people coming. And it sounds horrible. I mean, but for them, it was, I guess you could say it was, they weren't people. These were machines. These were substandard. They were just a dog to them. So anyways, the way he realized the people that survived were the ones that gave the most. The ones that hoarded their food were the ones that died the quickest.
Interesting.
And he realized the ones that survived the whole process was the ones that gave away their part of their rations. And he understood the value of giving, like that reward system, the dopamine, the way the human body, because what happens is if you're stingy, you release a lot of cortisol, which is the number one cause of death, right? Because you know what I mean? You're hoarding. It's a stress hormone.
Yeah.
So he just figured out that the power of giving and sharing, and that's what I talk about. Like, you can achieve everything in the world, but a life not shared is miserable, and sharing it is. But it's a very fine line. Like, you got to be careful with sharing. You got to share. Like, you can't give people things. You got to give them opportunities. Not. Does that make sense? It's
yes.
It's a very hard thing.
And here's the thing. I think when you think about the people in your life. When you're on your deathbed, is it the gifts that you've gotten that you remember, or is it's really going to be the experiences that you have with these people?
I did a test on my oldest son. I said him. Now we were at a restaurant one day, and I said, maybe he was about 17, 18. I'm always experimenting on my kids. Like, they are one big ass science experiment. And I said, Dakota, tell me everything you remember. Just give me everything. Just lay it out. I don't give a shit what it is. Just anything from your past. Tell me everything you remember. And man, he started spitting one thing after another. It was vacations. It was things that he had purchased, meaningful things that he had purchased. The point is that everything he remembered was something that he had earned. Life experiences, earning. He never remembered a cell phone that I gave him. He never remembered anything that he was ever just given. But when you associate like a smell and a sight, or a smell, you know what I'm saying, a taste and a smell, when those two things are combined, the memory is so powerful. And I think that's what earning gives you. It's a process that you can associate with an outcome, and it's buried in you forever. It's so powerful. And then once you get that state of mind, you're like, no, I want to make it on my own. And you become productive. And then you can share that productivity.
Absolutely. And but I think also in terms of the experiences, that's like the ultimate investment that you can make in somebody. So now all of a sudden you start talking about vacations, or you start talking camping trips, or going or whatever. That's that time spent that becomes a long-term investment in somebody that later on that feeling that they had becomes what's important to them in terms of you.
Yeah.
And so, like, for example, my son, when he was young, we in the Boy Scouts together, and we do a lot of camping trips and all that other sort of stuff. That made him part of who he is today, and it was that investment in him. Last year, I got both my kids certified in scuba diving because I'm a PADI dive master, right? And so, anyway, from that standpoint, I know that that's going to be something that we, going forward, can share together. My daughter's a marine biology major in college, and so I plan to take her shark diving, and do things like that are going to be very experiential, so that they can learn the value of that. They can learn, and I think the things that I've always wanted my kids to have. I always wanted them, number one, to have a good work ethic. Number two, I always wanted them to have a faith, so that they had something to hold on to when I couldn't be there. But then I wanted to give them the best education I could possibly give them, because that's the one thing nobody can ever steal from you is what's in your head. And so from that standpoint, then I want to surround that with those experiences, so that as they grow and develop as people, they start to realize the value of that, and now can start making those investments in their kids and their families, whatever. So that becomes something that becomes part of them. Yeah. I think when you take a look at lonely people, the reason they're lonely is because they're not investing in other people.
Yeah.
And I think, from that's one of the tough things when I actually get out on my own into my own apartment.
Hold on, real quick.
Yeah.
You made me think about something. I can also see the loneliest people are also the ones that invest the most in other people. Now, this is a problem. Okay. What I'm talking about is, have you seen a female or a man? Do you know a man or a woman that does everything in the world for other people? They're always there for so-and-so.
Yes.
Right?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But those people are also lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so there's two opposite extremes. Right? You have the black and the white, the people that don't give it all and the people that give everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think they're both very lonely.
Well, and the people who give everything.
Well, I have a theory on it. Go ahead.
Okay, no, go ahead.
They don't have self-respect. They love in the hopes that they are going to be loved. Like they are willing, like they want it reciprocated so bad, and they just keep giving and giving and giving, and they get tired of getting burned over and over. Mm-hmm. And I analyze these people all the time. I talk to a lot of these individuals that are constantly giving and never getting anything reciprocated, and it breaks my heart. It's like, stop giving. If they don't appreciate your value, you're making a bad investment, right?
Right.
And you deserve to be taken advantage of because you're so desperate that you need affection, love, attention. You need these things so bad that you keep giving it in the hopes that you get it back, and that does not give you a high SMV, sexual market value. That is not attractive. That is desperate. And you need to understand that you need to make smart investments, and if they don't appreciate it, withdraw your investment. It's okay to give, but if the moment they don't appreciate it, you stop. It's that simple.
And it's funny because I once heard it said, it was a lesson that I learned a long time ago. $500. $500 was the limit for this person who told me this. But basically the deal is if somebody in your family wants to borrow money, say they want $1,000, give them $500. And then if somebody else wants just $100, give them $500. And the reason being is because $500 was a high enough value, a high enough price that they would almost never pay it back. And so they never wanted to come back and ask you for money again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if somebody gave you $100, they eventually they could pay that back and they'd come back to you later for more money.
Yeah.
But, basically the idea was $500 was like too high of a limit.
They can't compete with it. Yeah. Well, I think that happens too much. I see both the spectrums. And and that's what I talk about a lot now is I'm starting to understand that I don't know shit anymore. I don't know shit. Like I've learned now that, oh, fuck, what I thought was white is not white. What I thought was black is not black. What I thought was truth is more complicated than I was told or what I was led to believe. And I realized it's a spectrum. It's this gray area. It's to what degree. It depends on the circumstances, the time of day, the temperature, like the feeling of the room, like what is going on. You have to take a lot of things in account. So I don't like giving advice like anymore, like, oh, it's just this simple. No, nothing is that simple anymore. Even when it comes down to truth, right and wrong. Sometimes I see too often, I can measure that and say, well, on this circumstance, you get what I mean? Anyways,
I totally do.
Life is complicated, and I don't want to shortchange it anymore. I want to spend more time trying to understand why people are in the situations they're in, rather than sit back and say, well, it's because of this. It's because you're shitting on the sidewalk is why they won't give you a job. No, why are they shitting on the sidewalk?
Yeah. Well, and here's the mind blowing thing for me is the word justice. So we talk about, we dabbled in politics earlier with a right. I never really understood what a right was, and
like a human right.
Yeah, and I mean, we all have this understanding kind of what a right is. Some people believe that they come from somewhere, but I was like, one day I was sitting there trying to figure it out, and I went and looked up the term right in the dictionary, and it said a just claim to something. And I said, okay, I can accept that. But then what blew me away was, okay, who defines just?
Yeah.
And then that's where you get into the right and wrong, and
it's complicated.
It is.
I'll spend weeks and months on this thing of you have no rights. You get what you deserve, and I can be very extreme. And it all makes sense to me. Like, oh, my God, that's the answer. It's all on you, And
yes.
I can gnaw on that for weeks, and it all starts making sense. And I'm like, yep, that's it. And then I see something like what was Soft White Underbelly. And I was like, I think about this. I can get into religion, and people talk about, well, man has free will. And I don't know if this will make sense. And maybe this is a bad association, but people talk about, well, murder and this and that and rape. And they say, he had free will. He shouldn't have done it. I think, well, what happened to the kid? The victim. The Jessica Lunsfords, the Adam Walshes, these kids that I've spent too much time thinking about. And I say, well, where was their free will? Why was I saying all that? Rights. It's like, wait. They didn't have no right. Well, I'm saying it's not as simple. Like,
for example, you have a right to your life.
No. I know.
But that doesn't mean that I don't have the ability to take it.
Yeah. The more I think I understand things, the more I realize, oh, fuck, no. I'm back at square one, and, yes. And I'm not so sure anymore. And we're a species that's evolving, and we stopped evolving physically because we met all our basic needs: shelter, food, water. Well, actually,
you're getting into Maslow's hierarchy of need.
Yeah, we've satisfied those needs, so we've stopped evolving. Except for we're evolving out,
right?
But we're mentally evolving. So every year they have to raise the IQ, like the 100 is a baseline. Every year they have to make the test harder because we're getting smarter. We're retaining more information. We're processing things faster. So we are becoming more intelligent. And we just haven't caught up with... There's a lot going on. We're 10,000 years away from being what we want to be today.
Are you familiar with Abraham Maslow?
No.
Okay, so Abraham Maslow was a kind of social scientist. Came up with something called Maslow's hierarchy of need. And so, like, at the very bottom is safety needs. All right, and then
that's like the foundation.
That's the foundation. It's a pyramid.
I measure everything in pyramid. Yeah. A hierarchy. It's a hierarchy.
It's a hierarchy. Yes. Yeah. And so security. If you are not safe, you're not worried about any other need.
Yeah.
Right. But once you're safe, now all of a sudden you get into physical needs, things like food, water, shelter, that sort of thing. And as you climb Maslow's hierarchy, the very tip is what he calls self-actualization. And we've now lived in a society where we have been so safe, we've been so fed, we've been taking, that really this is now where we're really getting into that self-actualization kind of discussions.
Yeah, we're evolving. Have you heard the term that mankind doesn't seek freedom; they seek safety or security? I believe in that. Like, people love structure. We don't. anyways, that's a whole nother conversation. I do a lot of research on the Gulag Archipelago.
Yeah.
And, it's a 4-volume. The book's like 1,300 pages. It's 4 volumes, 3 or 4 volumes. And I've not even made it through the first one. This is a very complex. Yes. Anyways, I don't want to get into that, but that's a whole nother conversation I'd love to talk about because I haven't really shared it. I've never shared it with too many people, what human beings are capable of within our lifetimes. And how long have we been going?
An hour and 10 minutes.
Okay. I'm trying to wrap these things up in an hour.
Okay.
How do you feel? You think we got in a good spot?
Yeah, I think you did.
I've really enjoyed myself, and I had no idea it was
too.
going to go here. I guess we always had a good conversation, and I think we touched on a bunch of things that I really wanted to go back and revisit. Mm-hmm. And I know I'll hear or listen or see this whole thing again, but I really liked where we were going.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
I really like the relationship
Our conversations are like that.
I like being, it's hard to be vulnerable.
It's
hard to put it out there that, my relationship wasn't all that great. So many people thought, and I think it too, I have the greatest relationship I know of, and it still was flawed.
Well, one of the things that I've learned through this is one of the most alpha things you can do is be vulnerable. And it's one of those things where once you are comfortable in yourself that much that you can be out there. And I'm not talking about the guy who goes and complains to everybody. I'm just saying that when you're willing to put yourself out
Is that
there,
something we've talked a lot about? Because I've always talked about alpha and beta and philosophy. Have we talked about that? We should go into that because I got some ideas on that. But you're right. You're 1,000% right. Alpha is a state of mind, and it's a confidence in yourself. That's really what it is. It's not a male thing or a female thing. This is not a dominant thing. Alpha and beta is, I believe.
Yes. And that's the thing is a lot of people think alphas are just dominant. And that's not necessarily...
Well, that's the perception that Hollywood and people have given us, but they got it all wrong.
But alphas are they're so comfortable in themselves that
it's
they're
the
okay.
quiet person that doesn't really care what you think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the alpha.
Exactly.
The one that's not trying... I used to think that we've always thought that extroverted people were confident people. Introverted people were, insecure. And then I thought about it. It was maybe 8-10 years ago. I was thinking, you know what? I think I'm backwards. I think introverted people are the most confident in a lot of ways because they don't seek the attention of other people. They don't seek other people's.
They're not needy.
Yeah. They don't need that. They don't need your approval. And I'm a very extroverted person. Started out a very introverted person as a kid, and I grew into an extroverted individual. And I see myself becoming more and more introverted because I started realizing, I'm extroverted because I sought attention. I love the high of making people laugh, and you know what I mean. To feel needed, wanted, appreciated was almost. It's just part of being a human. It's just part of being a human. There's nothing wrong with these things. Like these things have value. Extroverted. Insecurities can be used to advantage. Your greatest strength is always the flip side of every coin. I truly believe whatever you're great at is also what makes you terrible. You got to be able to see the things you're not good at. Anyways, it's about finding balance. Everything about me is about balance. And anyways.
I'll tell you, I'll give you the best advice anybody ever gave me.
This is good. This is very one side or the other.
And
go ahead.
When I had the ambulance company, there was a lady I used to transport quite often. I'd take her to doctor's appointments and whatnot, and we would get into these deep discussions. And she was, I guess she was almost 70 at the time, and what she said to me was, when we're in our 20s, we're constantly worried about what other people are thinking about us. I heard this. And so she said that, but when you're in your 40s. You run around actively not giving a damn about what other people think about you. She says, when you hit your 60s, you start to realize nobody was ever thinking about you in the first place. And it's that mindset of the 20s when you start to realize, when you think back to it. So when you're constantly running around worried about what other people are thinking about you, they're all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And so nobody's actually thinking about you in that place. And so you spend a lot of time wasting time. And then when you get to your 40s, running around actively not giving a damn about what other people, it's still a focus in on yourself. It's not, and when you start to realize that nobody's ever thinking about you in the first place, it frees you. It's so immensely freeing because now you can start to not worry about yourself and focus on other people and the knowledge that they can give you and the things that you can actually build with people is amazing.
I love what you're saying, and I agree with every bit of it. It's not even something that switches.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's always happening.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can be 60 and you're still becoming less and less worried. You know what I mean? The
Yes.
older you get, the less you care. But it's narcissism.
Yes.
You know, there's all these 6 ways to know your man's a narcissist. Well, guess what? I can tell you, he is.
Yep.
So are you. Everyone is. The most narcissistic people on the planet are children, because children think, you know, they are the reason why the sun rises and falls. They are the reason why children think that they are the reason why parents get divorced. They think people revolve around them. And as you get older, you become less narcissistic. And it's just the way it is. Now, some people are more narcissistic. Those are individuals that think they're that important. They think people actually care. And the more you believe people care about what you're doing, saying, thinking, that's just a better indication that you suffer from more narcissism. Your ego's bigger than most. And it's something to be aware of and say, okay, well, why? Where does that come from? And then you work on understanding why you need other people to accept you. And then once you start understanding why, then that starts to drop. And I think that's what's happened naturally through 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. These things happen naturally. But boy, you can really accelerate the process if you do a lot of self-reflecting. No one researches psychology. You know, forever they thought it was a silly thing. I did when I was a kid. I thought, oh, psychology. Fools, you know, and a lot of them are. A lot of them are like, hey, 4 years, shit, I can make $60,000. I'm going to be a psychologist. They don't give a fuck about you.
Yeah.
Do your own research. Like, you wanted to know about civics, you go out and figure it out yourself. That's me with psychology. I wanted to know why. Psychology is why. It's the answer to why. It's not the answer. It's the search for why.
Yep.
And it never stops ending. Like, why just keeps going. And it can be a very dangerous thing if you're not careful.
And I love the whole point that you bring up narcissism, because here's the thing is that I've been accused of it, and what I will say is, particularly in the divorce, and what I will say is, yeah, I'm a narcissist to a certain level, and what the more I intrinsically look at that and say, okay, wait a minute, how can I stop thinking about myself?
Ooh, that's a hard one. How can I stop thinking? I don't know if I've ever consciously asked myself that question, but go ahead.
No, well, I just, in my mind, I'm like going, okay, I've been accused of this. And then I start seeing, like I said, that piece of paper where everything that I'd said, I realized, yeah, that was me thinking about me and my feelings and my, all of that sort of stuff. I have to learn to be good with myself, to be happy with myself, before I can ever focus that on somebody else.
Yeah, that's key. It's self-growth. The secret to happiness, there's a bunch of them, but I think one of the main things is be selfish. Be selfish in the way that you come first, that your personal growth comes before anyone else's. Focusing on being the best version of you possible is very admirable. And that's something that we should be selfish about. And I don't mean saying, well, I need my time. No, it's why. You know what I mean? It's asking a series of whys within yourself.
The way I think about it is be so selfish that you can be generous.
Yeah. You know what? I just finished a book. Brennan did too. It was Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights. Let me tell you, I've got some great books. That's one of the best books I could recommend now. And something he talked about was being selfish and selfless. Selfless, you know what I mean? Both.
Being so selfish that you can be selfless.
Yeah. Yeah, he actually, I think he describes it in that way. And I thought it was beautiful. I hope you need the book. It's a wonderful book. I would recommend, I've got the actual book, but I love the audiobook because he's such a good narrator. It's his words, and it's just wonderful. Brennan loved it too. Did you like it, Brennan?
Yeah, I thought it was amazing.
Yeah. So I've got Audible, and so
me too.
I download books all the time, and when I'm driving, I'll just listen to them.
I had something I was going to end with, and I don't remember what it was now, but it was something about narcissism, and I don't even remember. I guess I was just ultimately thinking, I've accepted that we are everything. Scared, happy, angry, narcissistic, whatever thing you can identify an individual as, schizophrenic, I guess you could say, but it's to what degree? We all are these things, and it's a matter of self-reflecting and asking, well, why am I this way? Was it because nothing was ever good enough as a kid and now I have an inferiority complex? You know what I mean? It's just personal growth, man. Quit trying to fucking fix the world. That's what's wrong with the world. Everybody's out there trying to fix the world. Everybody's out there trying to help someone. Everybody's out there trying to, give other people advice. Right? I think the problem is, Jordan Peterson said, make your own bed. Focus on that. If you can make your own room look good, like you've accomplished something. And quit trying to go out there and protest everything. And I'm not saying these things aren't important, but have your shit together right. Like you're satisfied. Now, how can you help others? But if you have so much conflict within yourself, man, quit trying to help other people. But I'm even saying that's a balance too. It's not saying don't help people.
No,
don't take things so goddamn literally. But it's not black or white. It's,
but a biblical term. How can you take the speck out of somebody else's eye when you can't get the log out of your own?
There you go. Good way to end. Kurt, man, I have had such a good time. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, brother.
Oh, my goodness.
Oops.
I messed up mine. Is that you too?
No, yeah, I heard it.
Anyways, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.